You might be looking for some extra stocks to add to your portfolio, but you're not sure which ones to go for. Well, tech stocks might just be the answer. Tech stocks have performed incredibly well over the past 10 years. True, if the market was to take a hit, they may be the worst affected. But if you ignore all of the people that are telling you that the market's going to crash every 5 minutes, there's no denying that tech plays a huge part in our lives, and it's only going to grow into the future because some of these companies I'll mention today are so big that they can afford to almost ignore that stuff. That's why Tesla's still able to provide massive returns despite being ridiculously overvalued. Oh, and yeah, I'm not going to mention the obvious pick, Tesla, in this video like everybody else would. So today I'm going to talk about 5 tech giants that I think can make some nice additions to your portfolio that you can just set and forget. I'll discuss the reasons why and then you can check them out. But I will stress, do take a cautious and balanced approach, especially with how high the market is. I would always average into these picks. And if you'd like to see more of these, do hit that like button to let me know and subscribe so you don't miss my journey to that £1 million portfolio. So let's dive in. First up, we've got Google. In the past 5 years, Google has gained over 200%. Now, while that's not guaranteed every year, there's a good bet that it's going to be worth a lot more in 10 or 20 years time. Now, 15 years ago, people would have said that Yahoo or AOL would have been the ones to buy. Now, this might age like sour milk, but I think there's a reason it won't, and that is that Google has created the ability to literally print money. Now, you might think I'm crazy saying that, but hear me out. The reason Google is worth so much money is digital advertising. Consultancy firm Zenith Media estimated that of all global marketing spend, 60% is attributed to digital. Now, you might not think much of those listings you see at the top of the search results, but those top 3 places are expensive. In fact, some search terms like solicitor in London or lawyers, coming from my web marketing background, I've seen as high as £60 or £100 per click. Yep, every time someone clicks on one of those ads, those companies will pay that much money. I've seen home care companies paying over £1,000 per referral that you send their way. Be right back, I'm making a home care YouTube channel. Now, what's made that even more impressive is the fact that they own YouTube too. So every ad that you see here on YouTube get paid for. They've got creators like me making videos to publish, and they get a nice big fat chunk of their advertising revenue. In fact, YouTube made around 29 billion in revenue last year from YouTube ads alone. Pretty crazy income, right, from a free service. Google's biggest threat in the social space is Facebook or Meta, and every time that they stumble, as they have recently, it will only help Google. I personally can't see Google being replaced anytime soon. They hold over 169 billion in cash, which makes them a mammoth. They've pretty much grown too big to be replaced. They have so much money that they can have insane offices and spend their time creating crazy projects that may or may not work. If they want to dominate cloud storage, make Google glasses, have driverless cars, they can go for it with little to no risk. In fact, there's a brilliant website, Killed by Google, where you can see a graveyard of Google projects that just didn't take off. But they only need a few to be super successful to continue dominating the space. So Google, I think, is definitely one that should take place in any investor's portfolio, whether it's directly or through an index fund. Next up, we've got Microsoft. Believe it or not, Office and Xbox are still continuing to grow. Microsoft now has over 47.5 million subscribers to Office 365. And personally, I've seen more of my clients moving over there once they realize they need a more professional setup. This switch to subscription-based models is setting up the company even more so for the long term. The most important reason to invest in Microsoft is the growth in the cloud. More and more businesses are making the switch to cloud computing as they realize its benefits. Cloud infrastructure is in more demand than ever, with businesses shifting to working remotely and online. And a lot of companies that have put the structure in place will likely keep the same tools once they return to people working in person, or maybe they'll do a bit of both. Microsoft has an impressive free cash flow of over 50 billion, and they're willing to invest heavily once they see momentum. They invested over 5 billion promoting their cloud infrastructure, expanding their data centers in Asia, Europe, and Latin America. I believe that Microsoft will dominate in this space and again be one of the hard ones to knock off the podium. The top competitors, Google and Amazon, both have their primary focus in other areas. As good as I think Gmail Pro is, I don't think it's got a huge chance versus Office 365. A lot of this, I think, surprisingly, is down to IT technicians who set up their emails and cloud computing, and in general, they're way more comfortable with Microsoft. And Amazon are more in the web hosting space. Next up is Apple. Now, Apple are somewhat of a weird one. They've created an almost cult-like following, which has separated them from the rest. You're either on Team Apple or on Team Microsoft. I sit somewhere in the middle. Although I know on some aspects Android blows Apple out of the water, I just don't like Android. I also have a Windows PC, when an Apple would be better suited to my web designer day-to-day use. But they don't really compare when it comes to GeForce graphics cards, especially when they've got ray tracing. Apple has a free cash flow of nearly $100 billion.
$100 billion.
Yeah, between the companies here, there's over $1 trillion in free cash flow. The latest iPhone has been a home run for the company. With the upgraded camera, I know it's the first one that I've considered upgrading to in a long while, and the 5G upgrade cycle could really help them. The lower Apple goes, in my opinion, the better of a buy it is. I can't see much getting rid of Apple in the future unless they do something wrong that stops everybody buying iPhones. The following that Steve Jobs created is just next level. Next up is the giant, which is Amazon. Now, you might notice a theme here. I've picked companies that have almost separated themselves from the rest, making it hard to compete. And Amazon is no exception to that. Amazon has created the most crazy on-demand service with one-day delivery at the click of a button. I think Amazon is still quite misunderstood in that a lot of people don't realize that it's personal sellers. They think everything just comes from Amazon, which is part of their magic. Amazon's also clever in that they don't pay an awful lot of tax. Recently, I've noticed they've also got distribution opportunities, which essentially you take all the risk, you set up and invest in vehicles. If the demand stop, it's less risk to them, but that's just another story. Love or hate them, Amazon has become integral. People are willing to pay a stupid amount for convenience, and the logistical structure they've created is mind-blowing. People are easily willing to pay up to 5 times the price of something just to have it the next day, which is just crazy. But that is the society that we live in. I've seen an increased trend in more people moving to the Amazon Web Services for their website hosting because it's so reliable and low cost, which is a growing branch of the company. Between the on-demand nature of the company and growing cloud computing, there's no doubt that they'll be an integral part of the future. Again, with these type of companies, they've put themselves on so high a perch with so much money underneath them that it really makes it difficult to anybody else looking to compete. Now, the last company that I want to mention is Shopify. In the first quarter of 2022, Shopify is down a whopping 59%. In my opinion, that's mostly down to people just overvaluing it and hyping it up due to lockdown. But I think I can offer quite a unique perspective on this company with my web background. What Shopify does really well is e-commerce on a budget. I don't develop in Shopify, I choose to use WordPress instead. But to give you some comparison, where I would charge maybe $3,500 for a website and a recurring cost of £40 per month, Shopify can be £20 to £50 out of the box. Yep, that's not custom designed, it's not optimized for search or any custom functionality, but for beginners, it's a tough comparison to make. Now, you can do Shopify more bespoke and use custom templates and themes, but out of the box for a beginner, it's a great friendly option. What it also does very well is drop shipping. So all of these people finding products on Alibaba and reselling them under a quirky brand, this is a go-to platform for them. And everyone and their dog is selling an Amazon FBA course, made millions, so there's tons of people paying for their services. And to be honest, they'll likely not make a lot of money back from it. Shopify has really become the go-to for e-commerce online, mostly because of how complicated other platforms like Magento, OpenCart and WooCommerce are in comparison. E-commerce is only going to continue to grow into the future, as more and more companies need to get an online presence and expand from just selling in physical locations. And Shopify is perfectly positioned to capture just that. People want a cheap solution and Shopify can offer that to them. It's not what I sell to clients, but definitely not the worst option. The reason I don't tend to recommend them is they don't really rank well in search. And search traffic is crazy important. The amount of people that just ignore that blows my mind. So there we have it, 5 tech stocks I think you could easily buy, hold forever and not worry about it. As I mentioned, do approach these with caution, especially if the S&P 500 is high. That's a good indicator to see in general where these stocks are at, because these do drive a lot of the growth. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these. Do consider joining our Patreon community on Discord and coming over to say hi. And make sure to check if there's any more discounted slots available. If you want to learn some more ideas on stocks to buy, I recommend checking out this video where I spent £5,000 on these stocks right here. Thanks for watching and I will see you over there.